Hi everybody and welcome to Heel Heat. My name is George Coles and this is our WWE show for the week. Let's go right into it. First we have Daniel Bryan coming out celebrating his WWE Championship win at Night of Champions, which prompts Triple H to come out, basically talk about the fast count. You know, it is what it is. Everybody kind of expected this. They brought out Scott Armstrong, who seemed to imply that him and Daniel Bryan had coerced to do this by saying the gig is up. Triple H strips the belt from Bryan. However, what most people expected was him to hand it back to Orton. Randy Orton. Orton came out. He did not, surprisingly. Decent opening that ended with Daniel Bryan going to walk away with the world title, with the WWE title, and Orton hitting the RKO on him. Nice show opener. Your basic, you got your usual suspects at this point opening the show, as they have for the past month or so. But decent opener, decent continuation of the pay-per-view Night of Champions. Decent build for the next one, Battlefront. Now, the first match of the night we have Dolph Ziggler versus Dean Ambrose in a rematch from Night of Champions. This was a non-title affair, and what can you say? I mean, this was absolutely amazing. I believe I said it on my review of Night of Champions. If I don't, I thought it. Ziggler versus Ambrose is going to be a main event at a major pay-per-view really soon. I mean, these guys are absolutely amazing. Probably in the top 5 wrestlers in the WWE at this time. If not, they're just right on the doorstep. But really great match. Ziggler wins a non-title affair. My guess is to set up for him to get another title shot a little bit down the road, maybe even at the Battlefield or Battlefront pay-per-view. I get them mixed up. I'm a Star Wars Battlefield fan. Star Wars Battlefront, Battlefield, you know, it's confusing. But anyway, next match we have for the night is Fandango versus RTruth, spawning from last week's segment where we had Miz and RTruth pretty much making fun of Fandango at the dance competition and winning the popularity contest that it was. Fandango picks up a solid win. I'd like to see more of him picking up more solid wins, but this was a nice start. I really think they kind of dropped the ball on him. I think he had a lot of momentum coming into the WWE. First couple months was really hot, and then they kind of have given him nothing really to work with. The Miz feud has been terrible. Hopefully they pick it up, and Fandango, who's actually a really good worker, gets a little bit more. I mean, sometimes you're saddled with a bad gimmick, but a good worker will make that gimmick work. Look at the Honky Tonk Man, for example. Another example would be Gold Dust. Sometimes you get stuck with a bad gimmick, and you can make it work and make it profitable. Next, we have the obligatory Rhodes family segment of the night. We have Dusty Rhodes coming out, pretty much saying his Hard Times promo. Brings out Stephanie McMahon. Stephanie gives him the option of picking who to give the job to, Dustin or Cody. He says he can't pick between the two. He insults Stephanie, tells her to go to hell. Stephanie, pretty much the Shield comes out as her backup. She's about to let them tear him up, where she goes back to something she said earlier on the show. She had Big Show waiting in her office till she had something for him to do. This turned up being what she had for him to do. She brought Show out, tells Show to knock Dusty out, then says, if you won't do it, I'll let them do it. The Shield comes in, he kind of holds them at bay for a moment. Shield slides out, all gets chairs. Show sees it's going to be obvious that Dusty's going to take a worse beating from the Shield than they would from him. Knocks Dusty out and then gently holds him and lowers him down and walks him all the way out, and matter of fact goes in the ambulance with him to the emergency room, I'm guessing. here's something I don't get with this. I understand it's a TV show and what they did it for, what the effect they were going for was. But in what other walk of life would the guy that assaulted the guy going into the ambulance be able to go with him in the ambulance? Just saying, you know. I guess it'd be the same if a boxer injured another boxer, maybe they would. I don't know, it just seemed a little bit weird that they would let the guy that was the assaulter in the ambulance with the assaultee. Anyway, speaking of salty, we had a salty, spicy Divas match, 6-man tag. We have Brie Bella, Naomi and Cameron, the Funkadactyls, versus Layla L, Oksana, and Alicia Fox. It was okay. I actually kind of enjoyed it. It had a perfect timing. The main storyline they were furthering was AJ Lee and Natalya, who were both on commentary. Natalya had problems with her mic, so Jerry Lawler gave him hers. I thought it was good. This is furthering the Total Divas versus the rest of the Divas storyline. Not a bad match. I mean, not something I would put on my top 10 of the year, but for what it is, it was pretty okay. Now, our next match of the night was probably one of my favorites of the night. Rob Van Dam versus Damien Sandow. Damien takes a clean loss. Seems to be what they do with at least one of the Money in the Bank winners. They make them take some clean losses before elevating him to the championship. Why didn't he cash in at Night Champions? Who knows? The opportunity was there for Del Rio to be cashed in on. Van Dam destroyed him with a Van Terminator. I thought this was really good. Rob Van Dam has really stepped it up since coming back to the WWE. In his short time back, he's been more impressive and put more impressive matches on than the entire 3-year run he had in TNA. Just goes to show you when you're properly motivated what you can do. Now, coming off of that, we're going to switch gears a bit and go to our question of the week from last week. The question of the week was, what was your favorite bad gimmick or guilty pleasure? Now, I don't have the normal paper, but I do have it memorized. We had an answer from one of our friends, Handsome Pat Fannin, who said, my favorite bad gimmick basically was Thurman Sparky Plug, the gimmick that turned into Bob Sparkplug Holly, which turned into Hardcore Holly eventually. Good gimmick. I thought it was it wasn't bad. Bob, like I said earlier, Bob did what he could with the gimmick and eventually morphed it into a more successful gimmick being Hardcore Holly. But he worked it. He worked as Sparky Plug. He worked as Thurman Sparky. It was weird how it evolved. It went from Sparky Plug to Thurman Sparky Plug to Bob Sparkplug Holly to Bodacious Bob to Hardcore Holly. Just a little evolution of the Bob Holly character. Great wrestler. I mean, he very underrated guy. Got stuck with a bad gimmick. Now, my favorite bad gimmick that I'm going to talk about, or one of my favorite bad gimmicks, because there's so many that I like just for the cheese factor, Akeem the African Dream. I was a fan of the one-man gang. A little upset when they changed his character. However, he made it work. I don't know anybody else that would have pulled that off as successfully as he did. I thought it was good. It kept me interested. It was easily a character that could have been thrown away. Became a tag team champion and someone that everybody remembers, mostly for the horrible gear that he wrestled in. But he did wrestle great matches and he was a good worker. Now, coming off of that, speaking of switching gears, we're going to talk about a time in wrestling that switched gears. Our question of the week for this week is, who is your favorite Attitude Era star? Now, we all know the Attitude Era has kind of a rough area. Different people say when it started or ended. I'm not going to get into semantics. You let me know what you think, who your guy was during the Attitude Era. We all know roughly when the era was, so let us know what you think. Hit us up on Facebook, hit us up on our Twitter, put it down where? Down in the comments. And coming off of that, going back into the Monday Night Raw show, we had Randy Orton versus The Miz. The precursor to the match was that they wanted Randy Orton, they said in the beginning, to be more vicious, be the guy that handcuffed Triple H while he kissed his unconscious wife. They wanted that Randy Orton back. And Randy Orton delivers as Miz is greeting his mother and father, who were in attendance, being it was in Cleveland, Ohio. Orton attacks him from the back, totally destroys him, dismantles him. The weird thing was his mother was totally into the segment and playing along, and his father had this I don't give a shit kind of look to his face. I don't know if maybe he was clued in too much on what was going on and he was just being, non-reactive. But you would think if you're watching your son getting beat down right in front of you, you at least have some emotion. I don't know. Sorry, Mrs. Dad, but... And maybe that's where Miz gets it from. Maybe he gets his bad acting skills from his father, because his mother was doing a good job selling the fact that her son was getting beat down. It really cemented the fact that Randy Orton is the Viper, is a dangerous character, someone to be reckoned with. I enjoyed it. The match, I guess, ended with a double countout, I would say, or a double disqualification, or just thrown out. Good way, like I said, good way to let us know how dangerous Orton really is. Now, coming off of that, speaking of a dangerous man, we had Curtis Axel wheeling Paul Heyman to the stage with his newest client, I guess you could say, Ryback. Heyman says he's the best in the world now since he beat CM Punk, and it's all thanks to this beautiful man, Ryback, who, on his own, took it upon himself to come and help Paul Heyman out because he doesn't like bullies. I like how they molded these two storylines, the Ryback anti-bully storyline, where he's actually the bully, and Paul Heyman needing help. Something I was talking about with Gary, my normal co-host, who couldn't be here tonight, obviously. We were talking about this, and he said, would you like... He said he would have rather seen them pull up somebody from developmental. My theory on it was that right now developmental doesn't really have any monster characters that are ready to be pulled up. Not saying that there's not any good ones down there. I just think it fit better for what Ryback is. Ryback fits the mold of a Paul Heyman guy. You think of guys like Matt Morgan, Brock Lesnar. Paul Heyman's always had a monster-type character, and this gives him a guy that could be that muscle for the quote-unquote Heyman guys while Brock Lesnar's on his many disappearing acts. I'm not saying that's Brock Lesnar's deal. He has a right to do it. They were willing to do that. But this gives him a guy that can be there and be that guy that does the dirty work. If you think back to like the Heenan family, Bobby Heenan always had a guy like that. He had John Studd, he had King Kong Bundy, Andre the Giant, and then he would have his other guys, the Rick Rudes, the Mr. Perfects of the world, that were his wrestlers. But he always had muscle, kind of like what they're doing with Heyman here. I like it. I hope it does better for Ryback. Ryback was on a rocket ship to the top that they rode too fast and then burned it out. So maybe this will get him back to where he needs to be. Coming off of that, speaking of something that's coming back to where it needs to be, the tag team division. We had a number one contenders elimination match. We had the Usos versus the Real Americans versus Tons of Funk. Another great tag team match involving multiple tag teams. I think if they continue this focus on the tag teams, they could really get this to the point where it was in the early 2000s, late 90s, where tag team wrestling was just almost as important as singles wrestling. Really good. I like that the Usos picked up the win. I like that they picked it up without the Real Americans knowing that they did. The suplex, and then, one of the Uso brothers, I forget, I'm sorry because they are twin brothers, hits the splash and gets the pin. I thought it was really good. The only thing that I was disappointed on, I don't do the WWE app. I'm sorry. In between, on the breaks, on Monday Night Raw, I'm not going to jump to my phone to watch what's going on between breaks. That's my time to go get a bathroom break, refill my drink, get a snack to eat. All little things, yes. Obviously, I eat snacks, as you can see. But that's the time that you do that in. That's why they have commercial breaks, so you can go to the bathroom, so you can get a drink, get a snack, do whatever you need to do. But during that, they came back and they showed that during the time off, Antonio Cesaro had a giant swing. And they didn't show it. That's something that you should put on Raw if you got moves that generate a great crowd reaction, because the crowd was still buzzing from it when it came back. They should absolutely be showcased on the show. Great crowd reaction on the show makes people want to watch. If you're just flipping through and you turn into that and the crowd's going crazy, you want to see why they're going crazy. You don't want to see them on a rest hold because the crowd's not going to go crazy. Just my opinion. That, and I love the giant swing, so it's what it is. I wish they would have done it better than they did. But coming off of that, we're going to go into our main event of the night. Roman Reigns versus Daniel Bryan. Bryan picks up the win after a disqualification when the rest of the Shield and Randy Orton get involved. It looks like we're going to have our standard beatdown to end the show. What happens? The face locker room empties to come out and help. We got the Uso brothers. We got Daniel Bryan's already out there. Dolph Ziggler. We got RTruth. Zack Ryder's out there helping, and they all clear the ring so Daniel Bryan can hit his flying knee. I believe he hit it on Seth Rollins, but then they lift him. Everybody's in the ring celebrating, giving the yes, yes, yes. Great way to end the show. I've talked about it for weeks, that they need to give the face back the heat. That's why, this is what you do with this kind of storyline. The face gets an upper hand, the heel gets an upper hand. The heel gets an upper hand, the face gets an upper hand. The give and the go is what makes the storyline go. Absolutely loved it. They're already talking about the repercussions that are going to come to the people that helped Daniel Bryan. I thought it was awesome. I like that they've stood up for what's right. The faces have, and that's what you want from your face wrestlers. I mean, Stone Cold didn't fight the corporation on his own. There were guys helping him. There was Mick Foley. There was, Test. There was guys that came in and out that would help him. Not necessarily directly at times, but they fought different portions of the corporation. But anyway, we're going to go from that, go right into our ratings for this week. Now, if you've seen the show before, we have a 1 to 5 scale. 1 being the worst, 5 being the best. And a 1's a Great Khali, 2's a Heath Slater, 3's a Randy Orton, 4's a CM Punk, 5 is a Daniel Bryan. I'm going to go ahead and give this a solid 5. I'm going to give this a Daniel Bryan. I was really intrigued on what was going on the show. The main event storyline is amazing. The other lower storylines, and this is where people have been frustrated. During the John Cena era, however you look at it, they didn't really seem to focus on anything but the John Cena storylines. Now that we have the Daniel Bryan Randy Orton feud, we also have some mid-card feuds that are being given some great time. We have the tag divisions being given some time. The Divas are being afforded time to work and generate interest in them, mostly coming off of the Total Divas show. So that's a blessing in disguise. Ziggler and Ambrose's feud. I mean, there's several feuds that are intertwining with each other. And that's when wrestling's at its best, when everybody has a purpose. When it's not just, okay, it's Monday Night Raw, let's put RTruth and Damien Sandow out there. No reason for them to wrestle each other. But I thought it was great. I thought the show was absolutely fabulous. One of the better Raws in recent memory. There have been some really good ones too. Especially the Raw was 100 times better than the Night of Champions pay-per-view, which I thought was really lackluster and disappointing. This really made up for it. The thing that was lackluster the most to me was you knew that Daniel Bryan was going to get stripped. So you couldn't even really be happy about him winning. But basically, I give it a 5. This is a very solid show. Basically, that's all I have to say about that. My name is George Coles, and this has been another episode of Heel Heat.